Seeing as I'm a film channel, I guess I was gonna have to talk about these movies at some point. Hey guys, Caleb here from CDBS Studios, and this last week, we finally received the newest Disney live-action remake, that being Lilo and Stitch. These movies are very interesting to talk about because if you are somehow unaware, the last decade, Disney has spent basically taking all of their classic animated movies and rebooting them into live action. And a lot of these movies are not good. It's the classic problem where the original just ends up just being better in a lot of cases, and even in some cases, because for some reason Disney wanted to, when they remade these movies for live action, to change certain parts of the films to make them more progressive and make them more appropriate to the times. So I figured since Lilo and Stitch just came out and gives us an even 25 live action remakes and reimaginings, I thought it'd be fun to rank all of them from the worst to the best. And this is honestly the hardest video I've ever had to make because so many of these movies are so bad that it made me hesitant to even finish this marathon for this video. Because most of these movies are bad, a few of them are mid, and a couple of them are even good. But yeah, there's a lot of trash in this ranking, even more so than any of my other videos. So let's just get this ranking over with so that we can all move on with our days. So let's move in to the list. Oh man, the bottom spot. This is probably the hardest spot I ever had to pick, right? I just said this was the hardest video I've ever had to make. So I really probably had to think about what the bottom spot was, right? No, I didn't. I went into this ranking knowing what the bottom slot is. It's literally not a competition. The worst Disney live action remake is Mulan. Oh man, this movie is bad. If you're unaware, the Mulan live action remake released in the glorious year of 2020, and that was when we were all watching these movies on Disney Plus. And I decided to go into this movie to watch it because it was at a time when I was so innocent and didn't realize the live action remakes were the worst things ever. And it had also been a few years since I'd seen the original Mulan, so I thought, hey, let's give the live action one a try. And this movie was so bad, it genuinely made me question whether or not I liked the original. And I had to rewatch the original afterwards just to see, and yep, that movie's still amazing, but this movie changes the main thing about the story of Mulan. If you need a refresher, the point of Mulan is that Mulan enlists in the army to fight instead of her father, and she's very clumsy, not a great fighter, and she grows over the course of the movie into the warrior princess who saves all of China that we're all familiar with. This movie changes that to be, instead of Mulan having this struggling character arc, she's just born already perfect. You changed the one thing that makes Mulan worth watching. How do you screw up this badly? I mean, it's not even the story that gets me frustrated. Those songs that I love about the original Mulan are barely in this, even the ones that are like maybe part of like 5 seconds. Like, they're not even in this movie. So many of the characters are butchered. The editing is honestly atrocious in this movie. Every time I rewatch this movie, I genuinely have to ask the question if the original Mulan is any good, even though I know it is. They screwed up this movie so badly, and honestly, I can say I at least like something about every other Disney live action remake, so I guess that means I have to put them above this movie that genuinely makes me hate the Mulan story every time I watch this movie, and I genuinely have to watch the original right afterwards just so that that's the one that sticks in my brain, because that's the good one. Like, oh my, how do you screw up this badly, Disney? Man, I'm getting angry on the bottom slot of the video. Like, we haven't even started yet, and I'm already angry. This is not good. This is not good. Why did I think this was a good idea? At number 24, I have Snow White. Woo! Not last! I can give Snow White this one thing. it at least has one character in it that I actually enjoy watching. And surprisingly, it's Rachel Zegler as Snow White. She's somehow the most enjoyable part of this entire movie. Like, how is that possible? I mean, everything else about this movie, the story changes they make are just not the greatest. I mean, I can get by them at least unlike other changes in the live action remakes, so it's not the worst thing, but it's not great. Those songs are honestly not terrible, and Rachel Zegler is surprisingly doing a really good job. Her singing voice is nice. I don't hate the dwarfs that much, but they're not great. I mean, that CGI is honestly atrocious. And I don't know how this is possible, but Gal Gadot is not good as the evil queen. I don't know how that's possible. I usually like her in everything she's in. So this is kind of a weird this is like a weird this is like a weird flip in my general like of a usual actor. So Snow White is such a bad movie, but I can at least put it above Mulan because it at least has a likable character. That somehow being Snow White. So honestly, Snow White is bad. Don't watch it under any pretense at all. The only reason it's not last place is because there's at least a good part about it, which I cannot say there's a good thing at all in Mulan. So, good job, Snow White. You somehow managed to not be the worst live action remake in my eyes. I don't know if that's really a contest that you should be celebrating, but whatever. Congratulations, I guess. Woo! At number 23, I have Pinocchio. And this movie could have easily been my favorite live action remake. It has Robert Zemeckis as the director. You know, the man who directed the Back to the Future trilogy. The first of that trilogy is literally in my top 4 favorite movies of all time. And then you pair it with Tom Hanks playing Geppetto. Like, that's such a perfect actor to choose for Geppetto. Like, this should have easily been my favorite live action remake. Easily. Yet somehow, this movie manages to be so bad for so many reasons. Like, it doesn't really change anything about the original Pinocchio story, which is honestly likable, and there's not the worst thing, but there's also so many things about this movie that I think they missed the point of why Pinocchio works. I mean, I'm not even the hugest fan of the original Pinocchio, but there's way too many references to other Disney movies in this film. Like 75% of the clocks Geppetto has are basically just other Disney movies that there are, and it's just meant to be, and they actually focus on them. Like, there's a straight up scene where they just focus on every single one of the clocks. Like, why? Like, that's like in the original there were references to other Disney movies, like they had some of the books in the background that were actually the fairy tales of the movies. So I mean, cool, all right. And there's honestly some charm that comes from Pinocchio. I mean, he's still likable enough, but overall, this movie just kind of loses all the charm that makes the original Pinocchio just that good. And it just makes this movie so hard to watch, to be honest. Like, this movie could have easily been the best live action remake, but it just misses all the beats that I would have loved from it. So, sorry, Pinocchio, you had really good potential, but unfortunately you just didn't really match anything I wanted out of a live action remake of Pinocchio, and somehow you screwed it up by having two probably of my favorite celebrities behind you. I mean, I don't know how that happens, to be honest. At number 22, I have 102 Dalmatians, a sequel to the live action remake of the original. Alright, this movie is best described as less of an 101 Dalmatians live action sequel and more or less just a Cruella sequel. Like, none of the original characters are in this at all. None of the dogs, not the humans. It's just Cruella DeVille, who is thankfully played pretty well. I mean, Glenn Close is pretty good as the character, and she pulls off a phenomenal performance as Cruella. And there is at least some enjoyable parts about the plot in this movie. I mean, I don't think I hate it. I mean, and you're going to see later in this video that I really enjoy the live action remakes that tell fresh, original stories that are really cool to see. This movie, I just think, doesn't really work on a fundamental level in a lot of places. This movie I've seen best described as basically a Clockwork Orange, but with Cruella as the lead. And honestly, I can see it. Which, if your live action remake of an animated sequel is making me think about Clockwork Orange, you did something wrong. Like, how did you go from a lighthearted kid film to Clockwork Orange? I mean, that's like the biggest difference I've ever seen in my life. And it's not like I hate this movie. I mean, it's one of the more enjoyable live action remakes. I mean, it's not last, but it definitely is nothing special. It's nothing catchy, nothing really memorable about it. I mean, the only thing I really do remember is Cruella. So yeah, I mean, it has interesting ideas here and there, and it actually is telling some cool ideas, but to be honest, this movie was just not for me, and I can't really put it any higher because I think that it's just this movie could have been more memorable, and if I'm only remembering your main character, then you're doing something wrong because I mean, I should be able to remember a lot more. Just I should at least. At number 21, I have Mufasa, The Lion King. This is another movie that I'm surprised is not last, considering how everybody talked about it on the internet. Once again, I can give this movie this. There is at least enjoyable aspects to it. It is nice at least to see a live action remake that tells an original story. I'm gonna say this a ton later in the video, but I do like the live action remakes that tell original stories. I think it's better to do that with this live action medium than just basically telling the original stories again, but you change weird aspects of the story just so that it feels more with the times. So this movie's fine, giving us a little backstory on the relationship between Mufasa and Scar, heading us into the Lion King, and there is enjoyable aspects. I think I like the characters the best. I think Mufasa and Scar are both acted really well, and you can definitely get a sense of who the two of them become by the time Lion King rolls around. And there's even some fun things, like obviously there's certain characters like Raphael and Rafiki, I'm sorry, and also Zazu. So there's a lot of enjoyable moments from those characters in this movie, and there are definitely enjoyable moments, but other than that, this movie is also just really boring. There's not a lot of forward progression in the plot for a majority of this film, and the songs, most of the reason why the songs work in the other Disney films is that they work really well to keep you hooked on the story while also forwarding the plot. None of this music in this movie connects with me at all, and the only reason it's connected is because everyone memes on the brother song. So, yay, I guess. This is not the worst thing they could have done with a Mufasa prequel, and I definitely don't hate this movie as much as everyone else does, but it's nowhere near good. I mean, there also make some weird choices, like Scar's main reason for turning on Mufasa is a girl, which is okay, that's a choice. And there's other moments in this where I'm like, why is that the motivation for Scar hating Mufasa later in life? Like, I don't know. This movie tries to be a whole setup for what eventually becomes The Lion King and the live action remake and also the original. But to be honest, just watch the original. Like, you're not getting anything out of this prequel, to be honest. And if I wasn't making this video, this is definitely one of the movies I would have skipped and I never would have watched. So thank you, video, for actually making me watch this. So yay, I guess. I mean, it's not the worst, but there is better. At number 20, I have The Lion King. And this movie is another one that's just kind of flat. Like, you're going to see pretty soon a lot of the live action remakes that have animal protagonists are low on the list. The sole reason being, with the live action medium, you can't really tell their emotions. One of the things I think that the Disney company did really well in the old days with their with their animated movies that were about these animal characters were really good about portraying that these characters were almost like people and that they had emotions and thoughts and a lot of ideas flowing through their brains. And it's one of the reasons why the original Lion King is regarded as the best Disney movie ever created. But this movie being live action means that the animals can't really emote that well, so it's really hard to tell that they're even emoting. I mean, this movie's pretty flat when it comes to its characters. I mean, it's really, really flat, to be honest. And this movie suffers from the problem that it kind of falls into this pitfall that other live action remakes do, where they're like, you've seen the original, right, before coming into this movie, so we don't have to explain a ton of stuff that we explained in that movie because you'll already have known it. Yes, movie, I do know that, but why are you basically saying I need to do homework to watch the original Lion King before I can watch this movie? Like, most people are going to do that, but people that don't are just going to be really, really confused. And the music just doesn't catch on. Like, one of the best aspects of the original Lion King is its music, and I don't think I like any of the remakes of the songs here. The only real saving grace this movie has is Timon and Pumbaa. They are occasionally funny in ways they aren't in the original, which is welcome, but to be honest, if they should have just made a Timon and Pumbaa movie. Oh, there is a movie called that. Maybe that should be a good one. Huh. So, anyway, this movie, again, is terrible. Just watch the original. But it definitely has some charm to it, mainly from Timon and Pumbaa. But to be honest, this movie has no competition on the original, and it's still a 2 out of 10 movie. Yes, in case you've been keeping track, we are still in the 2 out of 10 movies. Why did I think this was a good idea? At number 19, I have Lady and the Tramp. For very similar reasons that I mentioned with like Lion King, I'm not a huge fan of the live action remakes that have animal centric protagonists. Because of the live action medium, they can't really emote that well. So basically, you take these really charismatic, nice, likable characters from an original animated movie, and they just become flat and boring in this movie, which is honestly just, oh man. There's definitely some enjoyable moments in this movie. I don't think it's the worst thing out there, but I'm not even the biggest fan of the original, so yeah, Lady and the Tramp is definitely not one of my favorite Disney movies in the animated form, and so I guess that kind of carries over to this movie. I do think this movie tries to liken some of those problems, like it does set up the rat plot line a little earlier than it does in the original, so that's welcome. But as a result, this movie's also very like anti-rat for some reason, which just kind of feels like weird. It's like, did you have to add the whole plot line and make that the focus? I mean, I don't know. So, and there are some other things, like obviously some things are still cute, like the spaghetti scene that they do still pretty well. And even a lot of the characters, like the side ones and stuff, are still really likable. But it just boils down to a fact that this movie just feels very boring and flat because the original is very boring and flat. And now you've taken away the entire emotion of the main characters. So it drops the movie even more than it already was. So yeah, this movie is not the best, but to be honest, if you do like the original Lady and the Tramp, then you might enjoy this movie more than I did. But this is not my favorite live action remake. There are better ones, but at least it's enjoyable to watch at some point, which is why it's made it this high on the list. At number 18, I have Alice Through the Looking Glass, another sequel to an animated live action remake. And this movie is fine. I mean, it kind of falls into the same problems that we're going to discuss with the original later in this list. That this movie feels less like it's supposed to be an Alice story, and it's more about, hey, you want to know the backstory of the Mad Hatter? Do you want to know the backstory of the Red and White Queen? Do you want to know the backstory of these random characters from the original? And I think this movie also suffers because Tim Burton is no longer the helm. And I think that kind of hurts because that's one of the things I do like about the original is that Tim Burton kind of brings this wacky style to the Lewis Carroll work and does it pretty decently. This movie has a completely new director, so the entire charm that came from the Tim Burton-esque nature of the original is kind of gone for this movie. It definitely has enjoyable moments. For how much I don't like that they spend so much time in this movie talking about the Mad Hatter and the Queen's backstories, they're probably some of my favorite characters in the movie. It might just come from the fact that I just like the characters like Johnny Depp and Anne Hathaway and Helena Bonham Carter. So it might just come from the sense that I like them, but that also kind of stems from the fact that we want to prop up those characters, and there's not a ton for Alice to do, which is kind of a bad thing. I don't hate this movie. This is actually one of the more enjoyable live action remakes just in general, but it also has a ton of plot holes and natures that don't really make me really want to seek this movie out ever again. Like I've said, it's not the worst thing that the company made when it came to the live action remakes and reimaginings, but it's definitely not the best. So, it's fine. You I would actually recommend watching this over any of the other live action remakes, but to be honest, if you're looking for a good live action remake, you should probably wait till I talk about like the top 10 movies in this list. So, yeah. At number 17, I have Dumbo, another Tim Burton live action remake. So, pretty fun. This movie is interesting to talk about, to say the least, because, like I've mentioned with the others, Dumbo is our central protagonist. Live action medium doesn't really allow him to emote in the way he does in the original. They do eliminate some things, though, like the crows, which is welcomed. And there's a lot of things I like about the movie, but this is also a movie where they stretched out the Dumbo story more than they needed to. The original Dumbo was only like 60 minutes or something like that. It's barely an hour-long movie, while this movie is almost 2 hours. And I think that hurts the story overall, because they've taken a pretty grounded central story about Dumbo and stretched it way too far, to the point where there's so much added fluff to this movie where I'm just like, can we get back to the Dumbo related stuff? Like, why do we have all these side plots that are just like uninteresting? And this movie's also centered on this group of kids instead of Dumbo itself. I mean, I guess they realized he couldn't really emote, so the movie centered on Colin Farrell and Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito. So, yeah, I'm great. I'm happy that they are the main people we're following and not the Dumbo and the mouse from the original. I mean, okay, fair enough. It's not bad, and I definitely like this movie pretty much. It's not the worst thing ever created for the live action remakes, but it's definitely nothing special. So, it's good, it's fine, but it's also not really, top notch Disney. So, it's fine, but, I'd definitely skip it if you're really looking for a better movie. I mean, I'd even watch the original, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the original. So, yeah, let that speak for itself, I guess. At number 16, I have Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. This movie is very interesting to talk about, because this movie's not only trying to be a sequel to the original, like the other Maleficent movie, but it's also trying to be a sequel to Sleeping Beauty, where they give Aurora and Eric a lot more screen time, and as a result, they kind of in a way make Maleficent a side character in her own movie, which is very weird. Like, there's solid chunks of this movie where Maleficent's not in it, and it's only on Philip and Aurora, and the things happening at the palace, which is like, why? I don't really get that, but okay. There's enjoyable moments that come from that drama, though. I think Michelle Pfeiffer is doing actually really, really well as the villain. I think there's a lot to get out of her performance, and tons of other moments in this movie. Like, for how much I don't like the fact that Maleficent's not in this movie, she does have some interesting plots that she is involved in, which is a lot of interesting. I love the forest creatures. I do actually really like Philip and Aurora. For how much I'm dogging on the fact that they get most of the screen time, I do at least like their characters, so it's not like I'm watching two characters I hate when I just really wanted to see a Maleficent. But that's the big problem, is that you go into this movie expecting more Maleficent. In fact, the original is a lot of Maleficent, thankfully, because it's called Maleficent. But this movie is like, they should have called it Aurora and Philip, because they're more what the focus of the story is. Once again, not the worst movie out there. It's one of the more enjoyable live action remakes, but it's also nowhere near the best movie that they ever created using this concept. So it's not the best, but it definitely could have been worse. So thank you, movie, for at least being entertaining and at least not making me wish that I could get the 2 hours I spent watching this movie back. At number 15, I have Peter Pan and Wendy. This is definitely an enjoyable movie with the kids acting really, really fun. And I do really love Jude Law as Captain Hook. I mean, he's just really fun as that character. And just like the original, he steals the scene in every time he's on screen. The movie eliminates some of the things like the Indian scene, which is one of the things that bogs the original Peter Pan down. And it is at least enjoyable to see a version of this story that is taking the source material seriously, which is always nice to see. But there is still a lot wrong with this movie. This movie, like I said, because it wants to focus less on things that can get Disney canceled and more of like the Lost Boys and all of that, Neverland kind of feels like it doesn't have what am I trying to say? It doesn't feel like it has the soul that made the original great, because for even much how much I dislike the fact that the Indians are in the original Peter Pan, it makes Neverland feel kind of not great. It feels kind of empty because before the Indians at least fill out the Neverland setting, and it's more or less like there's people living on this island besides the Lost Boys, but because they've now taken that out, the movie kind of feels like Neverland's a little empty, which is not the best thing I ever wanted out of this movie. At least it has enjoyable moments, and we are starting to transition actually into some of the live action remakes that I do think are good and that I actually like. So this is definitely the last of like the hard live action remakes that I definitely would say I hate and I never want to see again. So yeah, for what it's worth, I at least liked it. So yay. At number 14, we finally transition into the live action remakes I actually do enjoy. And we start with Alice in Wonderland. This movie is a lot of fun with having a ton of moments in it that really shine. One of the big things I really do like about it is kind of a sequel to the original Alice in Wonderland in a sense, where it's now Alice has grown up and is a teenager and returns to Wonderland and visits all these kooky characters, which is a lot of fun. I like it when the live action remakes are taking the concepts of the original and basically not just treading the same ground, but they're actually telling something new. And I love Tim Burton's direction for this movie, as it seems like a slam dunk. You tear the wackiness of Tim Burton with the wackiness of Lewis Carroll's work, and it makes for a pretty enjoyable visual style. I do really like a lot of it. The main thing I do have a problem with is that Alice kind of feels like a side character in this. This movie's a lot dedicated to the Mad Hatter and the White and Red Queen. And like I've mentioned, I do like those characters, but I don't know if it's from a sense of liking the actors and actresses rather than the characters. There's enjoyable stuff definitely in this movie, but it definitely feels very wacky at times. Like, it definitely feels like Tim Burton's trying a little too hard to be wacky, where in his other movies, it's kind of almost natural that the film is wacky, and it's less like that's the point. And I do think there are enjoyable moments, but I wanted to see more of Alice's journey, not the Mad Hatter having father issues or whatever they're doing with him. It's not the best. I mean, Johnny Depp's doing good with the character, but I just wanted, I guess, a little more out of what you're giving me, Disney, and this is not really what I was after. It's definitely enjoyable. Like I said, we're starting to move into the movies I actually like, but this is definitely the lower end of the live action remakes I did actually enjoy. At number 13, I have The Little Mermaid. I did not hate this movie. It's definitely not great, and I definitely gave it like a 6 out of 10, but it's still really decent. I think the big thing is the characters are really well acted. They did a really good job casting like Ariel and Eric and all the other characters in the movie. Ursula, Melissa McCarthy is killing it as that character. She is great. Even the rendition she gives of Poor Unfortunate Souls is still really, really solid. Not as good as the original, but still really solid. And I do actually enjoy a lot of the characters. The only character that I wish was not in the movie is Scuttle. Aquafina, like normal, is like the most annoying character in the story, and they also give an entirely new rock, like, rap song for Aquafina to sing as Scuttle, which is like, why would you do that? Like, she didn't need a song. Like, what's the point? And they did add a few other songs here and there, like they give Prince Eric a new song to sing, and also Ariel, which I don't hate either of the songs, but they're kind of unnecessary in the story. This still managed to pull off some great moments, like Kiss the Girl and Under the Sea are still done really, really well. I think Daveed Diggs does amazing as Sebastian, and the story is still paced pretty decently. I don't think that this movie does, like, add a ton of random fluff to make the movie work. It is a little weird that they have Ariel be the one to kill Ursula in the final battle. It feels like, okay, I guess you wanted her to have the big moment, not Eric, but whatever. And there are definitely enjoyable moments throughout the film, and I do actually really like I do really enjoy Halle Bailey playing Ariel, especially after she loses her voice. She's really good at this facial expression that she's doing as she's trying to communicate with Eric, which is something I do feel like is missing in the original Little Mermaid. How Ariel kind of is a little more stoic in a sense when she loses her voice. So it's nice to see that she's really nice. And honestly, this movie's a blast in almost every regard. It just has a problems here and there from the classic live action remake problem that basically, if I want to watch Little Mermaid, I'm going to watch the original. It's just better in so many other ways that I can't really go into here. But basically, this movie's fine. It's not the worst live action remake. And yes, it sucks that Disney has this like push to be progressive. But hey, if it gets good actors into roles they're suited for, then I'm fine with it, to be honest. At number 12, I have The Jungle Book. This is actually a really fun retelling of the story. Obviously, I gotta address the big problem that I've already mentioned. Because this is live action, the animals are not very expressive anymore because of the medium, but it still actually makes some pretty fun things because at least Mowgli is good. As long as Mowgli is able to carry the film and be really good in the role, it honestly doesn't hurt me too much that all of like Bahira, Baloo, Shere Khan, Ka, all of them are kind of stoic and not the best, but hey, it is what it is. I also do think the casting is pretty fun. Of course, they had to recast a ton of these characters for the movie, but the replacements they picked are still really well. I mean, Idris Elba as Shere Khan, no notes there. I do really like Bill Murray as Baloo, so that's a lot of fun. There's enjoyable parts about this live action, about this movie in particular, and it might be sacrilegious to say, but I might like it a little more than the original. And it does, I think, also come from the fact that I think this live action remake is also paced a little better. Like, the original definitely has this sense of, and then this happens, where we meet one kooky animal, we do our whole thing with him, and then we shuffle off to the next location to meet a new animal and do whatever it is there. But they do really well with this movie about making it feel natural when we move from place to place. I do kind of wish that King Louis was maybe in a little more. In fact, I think he's butchered maybe ever so slightly from the original. But there also was some enjoyment from the songs as well. So this is definitely a really enjoyable live action remake, and it's definitely really fun. And I would recommend watching it, even if you are a super fan of the original or don't like the original. Maybe give this one a try because I like it better than the original. So we'll see what happens. At number 11, just shy of the top 10, is our newest live action remake, Lilo and Stitch. I guess Disney ran out of Renaissance films to start remaking, so they're starting to target the 2000s and 2010s Disney movies. My childhood. And this is also where maybe some of the unironic enjoyment of this movie comes from, is that Lilo and Stitch is one of the first new Disney movies I remember watching as a kid, so I am a huge fan of that movie. And this movie still manages to capture some of the charm and comedy of the original. And also Lilo and Stitch, I think, are really well acted. I think they are able to keep up pretty well with their movie counterpart, their animated counterparts. And also Stitch just looks cute and pretty well done on his CGI. In fact, the aliens in general look pretty decent in this. I don't think I hate the designs of any of them. There are a few places they look a little but overall, decent enough. But there is some things I do not like. Like, one of the biggest changes I hate about this movie is that our Lord and Savior Captain Gantu is not in this movie at all, and therefore Jumba is made the villain, which I don't like because Jumba is one of my favorite characters from the original, and also later he has some pretty great redemption arcs that could play off in the direct to DVD sequels and the TV show. But they just rake him just straight up a villain in this, which is not great to see. In fact, the alien stuff in general is not really the focus of this. They also really dial up the sibling drama between Nani and Lilo, which is not the best to see. This feels more like a soap opera than anything, which is not the best thing for a movie called Lilo and Stitch. But this movie at least has enjoyable elements, and it definitely is not the worst to come out of the live action remake machine. I mean, obviously, it's made it this far on the list, but I would recommend watching it if you do want to go to the theaters, but it is definitely not the worst, but it definitely is not the best either. I mean, To be honest, we're still in like 6 out of 10 movie category right now. We're not into the really, really high live action remakes yet. Bringing us into the top 10 is 101 Dalmatians. Now, I'm going to straight up say it. I really enjoy this movie. I mean, the 101 Dalmatians original film is easily in my top 10 favorite Disney animated films. And this film is able to capture a lot of that charm that makes that movie great. Mainly Cruella. Glenn Close is doing a phenomenal job as this character, and it honestly makes the character so fun to watch whenever he's on screen. Plus, some of the other side villains like Jasper and Horace are fun to watch. And one of the things I do really like is that Roger and Anita get a lot to do in this movie, because part of the reason with this live action remake is that the dogs don't talk at all. They're based dogs, and the humans are now carrying the story, which I do like in certain senses, because I do feel like in the original, one of the things I'm not the biggest fan of is that how Roger and Anita kind of get sidelined hard after the puppies get kidnapped. So it's not the best thing to come out, but I do think they have fun elements to be part of the story, and it's nice to see them, but it does butcher some parts of the original because the animals can't speak or anything, so it doesn't mean that they're phenomenally likable or anything like that. But hey, it's fun, it's enjoyable. This is definitely one of the better live action remakes. We're definitely entering that territory now of the live action remakes I'm starting to like really, really enjoy. But this is still not the best way to experience 101 Dalmatians if you're looking for a way to watch it. But it's fun. I like it. And it takes number 10 on the list. At number 9, I have Beauty and the Beast. This is the first live action remake I actually saw in theaters, so there is a little bit of enjoyment from that as my parents shared their childhood with me and my childhood. And I like it. I think this movie gets a lot of hate for some reason. I do actually really enjoy Emma Watson as Belle. Dan Stevens is doing an amazing job as Beast. Even all the other characters. Luke Evans is a great Gaston. The Furnitures are doing really good as those characters. And this movie's just really fun across the board. Even Ewan McGregor is somehow doing really good as Lumiere. I thought I was going to hate that casting, but he plays it pretty well. And there is really enjoyable stuff about Beauty and the Beast. The songs are all pretty much intact. They're all fun to watch. And the story itself is still really fun. The big thing that I don't like is some of the changes they make. Like, for some reason, the original Beauty and the Beast is paced perfectly, and it's easily the best Disney animated film critically. But this movie has a lot of weird, like, stop moments that they have to do, like, where they hit the brakes. Like, this movie has an entire 30-minute subplot of just Black Plague, and it's given to Belle's mother, which I guess it's nice to hear about hear some things about her, because she's obviously not in the original, but it's just, I don't know if Black Plague is the story I wanted to go with. So, I mean, it's fine. This movie's definitely one of the way more enjoyable live action remakes. In fact, there's a reason it's so high on the list, because it's just one of the remakes I actually do rewatch from time to time, because it is just that fun. But it definitely has also got those glaring issues that make it kind of on the side. Like, obviously, watch the original. It's the best thing, but this movie's not a half bad way to experience Beauty and the Beast. And I think it's definitely one of the times where Disney got a live action remake right. Like, one of their very first attempts. Like, that's kind of shocking that they started good and then slowly just declined until they got to the point of Snow White and Mufasa. Crazy. At number 8, I have Maleficent. Now, this is a really, really enjoyable retelling of Sleeping Beauty storyline. I mean, it's a little weird. When I first saw it, I was a little skeptical, because it's like, when you look at it, it's taking the plot of Sleeping Beauty, setting it on Maleficent, but still telling the plot of Sleeping Beauty, which is not the greatest thing, because instead of spending a lot of time looking over the fairies that watch over her, or the love story that happens between her and Philip, this movie is about Angelina Jolie playing Maleficent. She curses Aurora and then slowly has this turn of heart as she slowly comes to accept her as kind of the surrogate daughter, and eventually in the end she's the one that gives her the kiss to wake her up instead of Philip, which is a little bit of a weird change, but I'm willing to look past it because the movie is enjoyable, at least. I mean, apart from the obvious changes they make to the Sleeping Beauty story to make Maleficent more of a hero character, the movie's still really enjoyable to watch. I think Ella Fanning is doing an amazing job as Princess Aurora. I think she's just doing really fun as that character. In fact, I like a lot of the other characters, Prince Philip, King Henry. There's a ton of enjoyable characters in this movie that I really enjoy. But there is also those downsides that kind of keep this from being any higher on the list. And we are starting to venture into the territory of the live action remakes telling original stories, which is also why they're higher, because I think telling original stories is better than just copying the originals. But anyway, this is a fun movie. It's definitely a better live action remake. I'd recommend watching it, but at the same time, watch the original. You're really not missing much by skipping this. At number 7, I have Aladdin. Now, hate me if you want. This is easily one of my favorite live action remakes to rewatch. Like, obviously, it has its issues. Will Smith is no replacement for Robin Williams as the genie. I mean, he's doing the best with actually what he's given. I think I actually really do enjoy Will Smith as the genie. There's some things that add here and there to his story. And they do make certain changes to the story to make it fit better. Like, they actually make the genie the storyteller, which I do really like. And also have a whole side plot he has with the love interest of being in love with Jasmine's handmaiden, which is a little interesting of a side plot. But I also do just enjoy the rest of the characters: Jasmine, Sultan, Aladdin, Abu. They're all really fun characters. The only character I think really that gets butchered is Jafar. He's kind of a whiny baby in this movie for most of it, and it's kind of unfortunate because while he has elements of that in the original Aladdin, he's also got this menacing side that I don't think I ever get out of the actor, which is just unfortunate. And I know a lot of people hate this, and I've already said multiple times in this video that I hate when the live action remakes changed parts of the story. I actually like Jasmine's Sultan plot. I don't think it's the worst change they could have made, and actually one of my criticisms of the original Aladdin is that Jasmine is kind of a nothing of a character. She's kind of there, and she's more or less the love interest of Aladdin. That's kind of her only role in the story, which is unfortunate. And this movie does a really good plotline of her wanting to be Sultan of Agrabah, and eventually she gets that in the ending, and she gets a whole side song, Speechless, which, while it's a little pointless in the overall story, I still love to listen to it. It's a good song. Even the rest of the songs, Friend Like Me, Prince Ali, One Jump, like, there's still a ton of really good music in this movie, and it's not like butchered versions of the songs like there were for like Lion King, for instance. This is still a fun live action remakes. I love how it's shot. I love the things here and there about it. I really love this movie, and it's one of the better live action remakes. In fact, it's one of the only ones I think I actually watch on a semi, like, maybe 2-3 year basis. It's one of the only ones I actually come back to. So that means you're doing something right. Because if I'm coming back to your live action remake, then it means that you did something right. And I really like Aladdin. I might be the only person that actually puts it in the top of their live action remakes, but hey, if you hate it, then that's completely your own opinion, and I think that's cool of you. At number 6, I have The Sorcerer's Apprentice. This is a very interesting thing to call a live action remake because it's a remake, it's taking the concept of The Sorcerer's Apprentice short in Fantasia and fleshing it out into a full story. Like, this feels very little like it's a meant live action remake and more like they just took a story, they just made a story that just so happens to draw inspiration from a small musical section of a short concert that Disney made like decades ago in like the 40s. So anyway, this is a really fun movie kind of going through this kind of magical world. You've got Nicolas Cage as kind of the head as the head sorcerer who's a lot of fun to watch. I really like Alfred Molina as the villain. I think he's doing a lot of fun there. You got some great moments like Barchel, who plays the main character. He's a lot of fun. You got Teresa Palmer, who's a lot of fun as the love interest, Becky. So I know there's a lot of people that hate this movie. I think this is a really fun sorcerer kind of deep dive into this mystical world that I really do enjoy. It does have some moments that I'm not the hugest fan of. I think some of the fight sequences are kind of meh. They also have this dumb kind of plot line that the doll that the main villain is captured in is like one of those nesting dolls that has multiple layers. So we have to encounter a ton of random villains throughout the movie that are slowly getting released, and honestly, like, half of them are like never fleshed out as characters. Just like, oh yeah, there's this villain. They tried to release they tried to track down the doll here. Okay, they're free. Oh, they're dead. Okay, never mind. Alfred Molina is back as the villain. So it's a little unfortunate, and I think the ending is a little weird in a lot of senses, but I really enjoy this movie. I don't understand the hate it gets, but to be honest, it's definitely not amazing. I think I only give it like a 7 out of 10, but it's still a really fun movie. I like watching it, and I definitely would recommend it if you've never seen it. Bringing us into the top 5 is Cinderella, the only live action remake besides Jungle Book that I can say is better than the original. I'm not the hugest fan of the original Disney Cinderella because I genuinely think it's just not the best adaptation. They skip over all of Cinderella's backstory and relegate it to like 5 minutes of exposition, and the rest of the movie basically is just the mice's antics. And thankfully, this movie brings the Cinderella story back to what it's always meant to be about. Really does a great job fleshing out the prince and Cinderella as characters. I do really love Kate Blanchett as Lady Tremaine, who is just who's a really fun character. In fact, most of the characters in this are doing really, really good jobs. I don't think I hate any of the characters except for the characters you're supposed to hate. So, good job on that front, I guess, when it comes to acting. I love the story, it's paced well, and honestly, this movie is just so fun across the board. Its music is phenomenal, its visual style is great, the costumes all look amazing, the acting as well. This is the only live action remake I genuinely think is a really top tier movie, and it's so fun to watch. And like I said, the only live action remake I can definitively say is better than the original because I was even hesitant to say Jungle Book is better. So Cinderella is the only one I can definitively say. This is a really good movie. And if you, like me, are not a huge fan of Cinderella, the Disney version, either watch one of the millions of other adaptations out there or watch this movie because this is a really good telling of the Cinderella story that eliminates all that boring stuff that I hate about the original, and it makes the movie so much more enjoyable to watch. At number 4, I have Cruella. Now, this is what I want out of live action remakes. Take familiar characters that we know about and flesh them out because this movie is phenomenal, giving us a backstory to one of my favorite Disney villains of all time in the form of Cruella de Vil. I love Emma Stone's portrayal of the character. She is doing phenomenal in this role. In fact, she is easily the best part of the movie, hands down. And I love everything else. Emma Thompson is doing an amazing job as kind of the pseudo villain. You've got so many other characters in this movie. Like, we obviously set up Jasper and Horace. That's a lot of fun. You have other side characters that are fun to see. You even get Roger and Anita in here as well. So that's always fun to see that you actually get them in the new movie as well. But there is some things that drag this movie down. I think it has one of those backstory BS things where they basically explain the backstories of things you never really wanted to explain. So it's like, why do we want to know where that thing came from? It's like, I don't care. But I easily enjoy Cruella as one of the best live action remakes. In fact, I would be fine if they do more like villain spin-offs. One of the things I would have loved is I think Melissa McCarthy is an amazing Ursula. Give her a backstory movie about how she becomes the evil villain we know from the Little Mermaid movies. Honestly, do something interesting like that with the live action remake template instead of just remaking the stories that we've already come to love in the animated versions that you're easily just making less superior by changing a ton of dumb stuff to make them more like in the present time. So yeah, Cruella, easily one of my favorite live action remakes. It just nearly skates out on the top 3 because it does have some slight issues here and there that keep it from the top slot, but easily one of my favorite movies across the board when it comes to these live action remakes. Honestly, the bar for these movies is already set so low that I deserve movies like this that I actually really enjoy, and I'm happy to say that the top 3 movies I enjoy a little better. So yay, I finally get to talk about movies I like in this video. At number 3, I have The Jungle Book, 1994. Yeah, you guys probably didn't even know this existed. This is technically Disney's first live action remake, and I know you might be thinking, wait, what? That's weird, but it counts. It's on the Wikipedia page as part of the Disney live action remakes, which is what I use when I make these video rankings, how I make my lists. And this movie's very weird to talk about because it's less a live action remake to the original and more of an adaptation of the actual Jungle Book, in which Mowgli is this kind of grown-up Tarzan-esque character who teams up with a girl named Kitty, and they end up going on this little like adventure that you would expect to see in any kind of adventure novel. And it's actually a really fun movie. I really do love the story and the whole way to get across it. In fact, the movie actually sets itself up to be really different early on because the animals in this movie don't talk at all. So there's no sense that we have to find a way to make Baloo or Bagheera or Shere Khan like nice, likable characters. It's just basically like, oh, this is a dangerous tiger. Stay away from it. Oh, this panther's cool. We can stay with him. Oh, this bear is cool. We can stay with him. So, anyway, this movie's really fun, and it's definitely a very interesting movie to talk about because it's not really a live action remake, but it's technically one. So I gotta count it for the ranking. This is just a really fun movie that actually I had never seen before making this video. So honestly, I'm happy that I was able to find a new movie out of this category that I do really love because, I mean, to be honest, these movies are like 75% terrible. So to be honest, I'll take whatever I can get when it comes to this video. And Jungle Book is doing a phenomenal job with the material it is given. Taking home the silver medal at number 2 is Pete's Dragon. This movie is so fun because, like I said, I love the Disney live action remakes that don't just use the old stories and tell new original ones. And this movie is phenomenal when it comes to that category of taking a pretty interestingly grounded for original live action animated hybrid movie and telling a really phenomenal story as its repeat. I really like this movie. And I think there's a lot of great to love from the actors. I think Bryce Dallas Howard is doing amazing. Robert Redford is a lot of fun. Even the kid actors in this are really fun. If I did have to drag down this movie for any reasons at all, I just think that the villain is kind of really cookie cutter. He doesn't really have a presence in this movie. He doesn't really have a presence in this movie outside of the final act. And to be honest, the final act is a little stupid for some reasons. Like they are able to capture they're able to capture Elliot and they hold him hostage, but then the kids are just able to break into the compound, steal Elliot back, and he just collapses a bridge, and the villain just gives up. So I'm not a huge fan of the third act of this movie, to be honest. But to be honest, the first two acts are so strong that I can't not put this one at second place because honestly, this movie is really good up until about the last like 20 minutes. So this movie, phenomenal. Would totally recommend it if you hadn't watched it. And I think that this is easily one of the best live action remakes to come out of the whole live action remake phase. Guys, I want to just thank you for bearing with me. This ranking put me through so much awful garbage for this ranking as I had to rewatch movies like Mulan and Pinocchio and Lion King that I just don't really like that much at all. So, to be honest, when it comes to all these live action remakes, I deserve a movie that I genuinely think is phenomenal and is 100% deserving of first place. Without further ado, my favorite number 1 live action remake slash reimagining is Christopher Robin. Easily the best live action remake in my opinion. In fact, this is honestly a movie that I would not be that if you told me that that this was made as a genuine live action a genuine Disney movie, then I would agree with it because it just doesn't feel like it's trying to use the Winnie the Pooh IP that badly. This movie is very interesting as it follows a grown-up Christopher Robin played by Ewan McGregor, who's always amazing, and he takes on this and he's grown up and he's gone off to war. He has a wife and daughter, and the whole movie is about him learn as Pooh shows up in his life, and the two of them go on this adventure where Ewan McGregor learns to start being a kid again and starts to connect with his wife and daughter. And this movie is just phenomenal as it has a great story. Ewan is doing a phenomenal job as a character. In fact, even his wife, Haley Atwell, is doing a phenomenal. And the other thing I think this movie does amazing is the voice actors for the characters, Pooh, Tigger, all that, it's actually the guys who voiced them during the animated. They brought Jim Cummings back to do Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. You got Toby Jones in there as Owl, and it feels really much like they wrote this movie as a natural sequel to the original Winnie the Pooh films. And I think this is the true showcase of that, where they actually get the real voice actors to play the characters again. This would, knowing Disney, I would have not been shocked if they took a bunch of celebrities and stuck them in these roles to be like, hey, come see this movie where we got Ewan McGregor as Christopher Robin and I don't know, some other famous celebrity as Jim Cummings, The Rock or something, playing Winnie the Pooh or Tigger or something. But no, this is the actual voice actors delivering the characters that we grew up loving. And this movie is easily the best live action remake because it's the only movie on this list that I can genuinely see being conceived and made as a genuine attempt to take the Winnie the Pooh IP and make a really good movie. It wasn't just let's remake a movie because we have the IP or let's remake it because it'll make us a ton of money. This is the one live action remake I genuinely feel like they have a lot of heart behind it, and it is why it takes the number one place on my list. So there's the list. I want to thank you guys all very much for watching this video. And if you guys want to take on the challenge of ranking all 25 live action remakes and reimaginings, leave your rankings in the comment section down below. And if that's a little too difficult, just give me what your top 5 are and what your bottom 5 are. But without further ado, thank you guys all very much for watching this video. And I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.